and the pit crew lead for past 2 years in robotics. I've been on a few different teams, so yeah. This is going to be my 4th build season next year and 8th year involved with FIRST. So anyway, how many of you have had a robot in competition have a problem and it just stops working? Anyone? Yeah, I figured. All right. So that's kind of where the pit comes in, right? So it's pretty important. You have to be able to correct those problems because they're going to happen. So the pit that I'm going to talk about, I'm just going to just kind of give you some ideas so you can hopefully, think about the pit you already have, or if you're a new team, think about how you're going to set up your pit. So I'm just going to I'm not going to talk about any of the fancy style things that a lot of people do. Those are awesome. But I'm just going to talk about basically the functional aspects of pit design. So a few elements that I really like to see in a pit, and I'm surprised that one of these is actually not as common as I would think it would be, is flooring. You can just get, like the gray, like exercise tiles that you can just slot together. Those are super cheap, and they make pit repair for the mechanical team so much nicer. I've had to do it where, just on concrete, and it's just awful if you don't have knee pads. So yeah, for like 20 bucks, you can make your mechanical team happy. So would definitely recommend that. Another issue, so a lot of times you're going to, you have the fabrication shop at all the competitions, but there's still times you need to do things in the pit with tools, and you're going to need a work surface for that, right? And I know a lot of teams, my teams have done this in the past, but we're changing this now, is they give you that folding table and they'll use that. Now, a folding table is a little rickety, right? So when you start to have vibration, maybe even with a cutting tool or a drill, it's hard to get a precise hole. So what I would recommend is if you guys have tool chests in your pit, put a work surface on it and put a vise on that, because if you have they're pretty heavy to begin with, and then you add, a few 100 pounds worth of metal in there, suddenly you have a really solid work surface. And that's been very effective. I find it's even sometimes better than a wooden workbench. So I definitely recommend that. And especially what I like about that is you're maximizing your space. So instead of having a table with stuff that you might slide under, you have a full-on bench, and then you have all your storage underneath that. So just try to think about that, I guess, when you're doing pit design, is how can I take wasted space is basically what you want to avoid. So how can I take this area and make it use every part of that area? Another thing is you need part storage in pits. And I know a lot of teams, my team is very guilty. We've had a lot of teams actually walk by our pits and is 488 here? Because our pit looks like a storage area. It doesn't look like a pit, because it's just tote stacks. Do any of you guys have tote stacks in your pit? All right. And you kind of know when you need a part on the bottom tote, really fast, how that can be difficult. So what I would actually recommend is, again, going back to tool chests, use your tool chest for pits. You can organize it really nice, especially if you have a lot of cots, Vex stuff like we do. Just organize it by drawers. Works really, really well. And again, if you have that work surface on top, you're keeping a really solid bench. So something to think about. Another thing is the robot cart, because I consider that part of the pit. And sometimes that's just an afterthought. Again, we're guilty. We just had a Harbor Freight rolly cart thing. So a robot cart makes it so much easier if you have a good robot cart to repair that robot. So one thing I really like, we're working on a new one. It actually has a fold-up table for the programmers. So, because our programmers, they don't like to work in the pits just if they're going to type out code, but if they just need to test something or whatever, fold out that table. They can throw their laptop on there, and that way they're not having to store laptops on a work table and then mechanical might be throwing tools on there, and you don't want hammers thrown on your laptop, right? So that's something to think about. And if you have the spinny kind, with the turntable, I know it's a lot of work, but they're so nice, because you don't have to pick the robot up and turn it around. So would definitely recommend one of those. looking into that. So another just thing that I would try to minimize how much actual, like a lot of times, you basically, if you think about it, you have like 4 sides, but obviously you need the one side open to get in and out. So if you got 3 sides, personally, I'm not a fan of that if you can avoid it. If you can, like ideally, I would have everything on one side. So try to just kind of, you know, think about how you can move things to as little of a wall as possible. So, you know, yeah. And then, let's see. Right. So another thing that's really nice with the really big tool chests, like the ones that are like this tall, is you can, you have the bottom drawers and those top drawers, and those are great for storing power tools, especially if any of you guys have like larger power tools, like a saw or whatever, great to go in there. And what's really nice, if you can integrate your battery chargers for your power tools and make that, get your wiring team, have it all nice. So when you open up, you open up that thing, all your chargers are there, everything's ready to go. And also, if you can, put your batteries in one of those drawers, work some chargers into that. So I guess, yeah, that's basically the points I wanted to cover. Does anyone have questions or anything? Oh, okay, thank you.